I'd like to talk to you today about inquiry skill focus. To infer. Imagine walking into art class and noticing paints and paper at each desk. Immediately you think, today's project is painting. You used your sense of sight to make an observation about the art supplies at each desk. You know that in the past you've used these supplies to make paintings. You form a conclusion called an inference. That is about today's project in art class. Inferring is explaining or interpreting an observation or a statement. Inferences should be logical and reasonable. Inferences that conclude too much from the evidence are considered unreasonable. Prior knowledge and your past experiences help you make accurate inferences. Imagine you've collected a variety of seeds for a project in science class. You know that seeds are dispersed and moved away from the parent plant in several different ways. For your project, you make some observations and inferences about the seeds. So look at the figure here at seed 1 floating, seed 2 on a sweater, and seed 3 blowing through the wind. So you observe with seed 1. Your observation is seed 1 floats in water. So your inference from that is that seed 1 is dispersed or spread out by water, and that seems to be reasonable. Inference 2 is that most seeds are dispersed by water. That's an unreasonable inference because you do not have enough evidence about all other seeds. Let's look at observation 2. So looking at seed 2, observation would be that seed 2 clings to fabrics. And so your inference would be then that seed 2 is dispersed by animals, which sounds reasonable. The inference then, for the second inference you could possibly make, it might be that seed 2 is dispersed mainly by dogs. This is an unreasonable inference because you have no evidence about which animals would disperse these seeds. Let's go on to more than one reasonable inference. So sometimes a single observation that you make can lead to more than one reasonable inference. So let's go back up and look at the picture of seed 3. Observation is that seed 3 can float in the air. So the inference that you make from that seed is that seed 3 is dispersed by the wind, and that seems to be a reasonable inference. The second inference that you could make from that is that seed 3 would move farther from the parent plant on a windy day than on a still day, and that too is a reasonable inference. So reasonable or logical inferences are based on your observations and prior knowledge. A logical inference is not always correct, however. After you've made these logical inferences, you can gather more evidence to see if your inferences are correct. You can use scientific investigations, reference materials, or other reliable sources to check your inferences. Tips on making an inference. So, the first tip is inferences should be based on accurate observations. Also, these observations can be qualified as qualitative or quantitative observations. We'll be learning more about those in the future. The next thing is you want to try to make more than one inference from your observations, and you also use your prior knowledge and past experience when you make those inferences. You need to review after you have observed, review the inferences that you've made and consider whether they are reasonable, and then decide, do I need to look for additional information? Do I need to determine whether my inferences are correct or incorrect? And once you've gathered more information, then check those inferences for accuracy. We're going to be looking again at more inferences and observations and leading to correct and reasonable inferences. I hope you have a good rest of the day. Thank you.